Hello and welcome to this webinar titled Efficient Execution of Biologics Manufacturing, the Role of Finite Scheduling Systems as Part of Sound Business Process from Planning to Floor Operation. Hosted by Biopharma Asia Magazine and presented by Dr. Gloria Gadea-Lopez, John Maguire and Megan Rabideau. My name is Sri Patel and I will be the moderator. Now, before we begin, I would just like to remind our viewers that this event will be hosting a live question and answer session at the end of the presentation. You can submit a question at any time throughout the presentation via the Questions tab located at the bottom of your screen, and we will go through these at the end of the presentation. Now, please allow me to introduce you to our presenters. Dr. Gloria Gadea-Lopez is Director of Business Operations Management at Shire Lexington, Massachusetts manufacturing site. She has over 15 years of experience implementing electronic applications for biopharmaceutical manufacturing and their associated compliance practices. She has led the deployment of integrated tools for data analytics, manufacturing execution systems, historians, machine vision, and more recently, finite scheduling. She holds degrees in chemical engineering, food science, and a PhD in biosystems engineering. Her team is responsible for business operations analysis and operations technologies for the Lexington, Massachusetts biologics site. Of particular interest is the impact of single-use systems on MES, automation, and data analytics. John Maguire is the Associate Director of Manufacturing Systems at Shire's Lexington, Massachusetts site. His main area of expertise is the application of process engineering and operational technology for life sciences. He too has over 15 years of process engineering experience, including functional specification development and startup of several drug substance manufacturing facilities in Ireland and the United States. John led the design and onboarding of single-use systems for Shire's Lexington, Massachusetts manufacturing facility, which won an honorable mention for the Facility of the Year in 2011. As a subject matter expert, John provides operations technology perspective for ERP and more recently to finite scheduling systems at Shire. John holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Natural Science. Finally, Megan Rabideau is a manufacturing systems engineer at Shire's Lexington, Massachusetts site. She has 2 years of experience in the biopharmaceutical industry, specializing in electronic applications for manufacturing, including finite scheduling, manufacturing execution systems, and data historian. Megan holds a Bachelor of Science in her chemical engineering from Tufts University. I would now like to welcome Gloria Gadea-Lopez to join our webinar. Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Patel, and thank you to the audience for your interest. It is my pleasure to join today my colleagues John Maguire and Megan Rabideau in this presentation. We'll be discussing the highlights of the scheduling system and the business practices that we have recently implemented at the Shire Lexington site in Massachusetts. As you know from your own experience, this type of projects, although they are in the realm of technology, to really be successful need to be rooted in the actual manufacturing processes and need to perform optimally in the context of daily operations. Also, we know from experience that for this type of projects, we need to keep in mind that there is a larger context, actually outside of the specific manufacturing site where we operate. And this means that the strategy for manufacturing technology needs to be aligned with the evolution and the pace of growth, as in our case of Shire. You will see next the slide with the outline of our presentation. We'll be discussing first the key factors that influence decisions about technology for manufacturing scheduling. John Maguire will talk about the challenges typically encountered when multiple production lines need to be prepared for operation. He'll also talk about the project preparation and key success factors. Following, John and Megan will discuss in detail the project preparation and implementation, and they'll put emphasis on the front-end study methodology that we use to collect the user requirements, the phase approach that we follow, and the team integration. And one area that requires specific attention in our case is buffer preparation and the optimization of aliquots And you will see some examples of how this was accomplished. Another topic that we'll be covering is the project preparation, is the specifics around organization of process data, what we call the template design and the model creation. Then at the end, we'll summarize the lessons learned, and we'll offer some suggestions for the successful implementation of this type of project, especially around the system testing and go live. I'll get into a little bit of the company background and the scope or the context where we do our work. There is a legal disclaimer, you see here. And want to speak a little bit about the context of what I was saying. Our scope of work is in the production of treatments for rare diseases. It is estimated that 350 million people worldwide are affected with these conditions that are considered rare. And one striking fact is that of the 7,000 or so known rare diseases, only 5% have a treatment available. So one of the requirements for operation is to have the right systems to support the efficient technology transfer, clinical, and eventually commercial production. All of these obviously done under very strict good manufacturing practice requirements. At the Lexington site, we manufacture treatments for Hunter syndrome, Gaucher disease, Fabry disease, and hereditary angioedema. And it was recently announced that Shire is building a new facility in Ireland as our production capacity needs to expand. So with that expansion, Shire now will have presence in multiple countries. I think it's over 60 countries, with about 40 marketed products in all divisions and over 10 manufacturing sites. And another factor that we need to consider is recent changes that are illustrated here in the company evolution. And as you can see, if we move to the right side of the slide, there has been significant change. More recently, with the acquisition of Diax and Baxalta, we have added new products and production sites which bring multiple production platforms and functionalities that can be leveraged across sites. Our production operations in Massachusetts take place at two facilities. One is in the city of Cambridge, where we use conventional stainless steel technologies. And it is a concurrent multi-product cell culture and purification plant, and uses single-use technologies for media and for buffer storage. However, we also have another facility that is located in Lexington, Massachusetts, and delivers high flexibility, and this facility was built for concurrent multi-product operations with extensive application of single-use technologies. So this brings a new layer of requirements to plant scheduling. We'll be seeing some examples of how our new system, the scheduling system, is helping us manage and optimize the operations at the site, with a special emphasis, as I said, on the single-use technology. And here you can see the various production areas where we applied this type of equipment or materials. We can see there is a variety of unit operations involved in protein capture, purification, and storage, which means that the buffer solutions and their aliquots need to be planned in advance with the correct bag sizes, filters, and other components ready for correct operations. Also, the setup times for single-use systems need to be accounted for, as well as all the human resources to execute the operations. So at this point, after presenting the context of our work, how the operations happen in these two facilities, I will transfer the presentation to John McGuire, and he will be providing his views from the system owner perspective. John, please. Here.
Thank you, Gloria. So because Lexington site is a multi-product concurrent manufacturing facility, it introduces several challenges for manufacturing and also for scheduling as well. Being multi-product concurrent facility, there's really no regular cadence or routine of manufacturing operations. So scheduling becomes a challenge, and especially with the scheduling tools that we had previously to our new application. What we use at Lexington is not something that's uncommon in the biotech industry. We use Excel for scheduling. Now, Excel is something that I'm very fond of. I love Excel. It's a great application. It's just not very good for scheduling. I call the scheduling a lot like Tetris. The way we schedule our operations is by the day. So we have a daily schedule that gets used to schedule our main production activities. And here's an example of what our daily schedule looked like when we were using Excel. What I'm showing here is 4 purification batches of one of our product lines. And our product lines are all color-coded. And what the schedulers would do, they would have scheduling templates, and they would copy and paste chunks of the template to the schedule and put in a little bit of information using free text. It's all done by the daily level of resolution. Activities are shown on pieces of equipment. This is done manually. We're not tracking labor. There's no links to anywhere. There's no macros that are run. It's just done by sheer brute force and a lot of personal knowledge that people have, that the schedulers will have for the facilities. They take the start dates from ERP, and they will copy their activities from their templates based on what those start dates are. And it looks something like this. And any non-routine work that needs to happen on equipment, such as PMs or calibrations, they work with the facilities group to find sort of the white space on the schedule to fit that work in. So this is an example. This is 4 purification runs for one of our product lines. And this is the easy part, scheduling this, because each of these purification activities has requirements. And this is where the real challenge comes in. So each purification activity will have requirements for buffers. And as an example that I like to use, say we have 3 chromatography activities in a row, and each one has requirements for buffer aliquots. The example I'm showing on the screen here in the slide is that we have 3 chromatography steps that need a total of 9 different buffer aliquots. So chromatography 1 will need 100 liters of buffer A, 100 liters of buffer B, 200 liters of buffer C. Chromatography 2 needs 3 different aliquots, and chromatography 3 will need 3 different aliquots as well. Now these are 9 total aliquots. With our buffer prep facility, to be an efficient manufacturing facility, the schedulers aren't going to put 9 separate buffer preps on the schedule. What they'll do is try to combine them to do as little buffer preps as possible. So they'll take all of the requirements for the 3 different aliquots of buffer A, the 100 liters, the 150 liters, and the 50 liters, so these 3 that are needed across with the 3 chromatography operations, and they'll combine them into a single prep of 300 liters. And that 300-liter prep will yield those 3 different aliquot volumes that are required for one purification. Now, this is a very simple example that I use. It's only showing 9 aliquots that are needed of, say, 6 different buffers. In reality, a typical purification needs about 30 different aliquots of about 20 unique buffers that are needed. So they try to get that 30 aliquot requirements into as close to the 20 buffer preps as possible. And that's just for one purification batch. The example that I show here, with the 4 different purification batches in a row, the requirement will be for 120 different aliquots that are needed to support the operations. So the schedulers need to look at the requirements across the facility for column packing, for our recovery area, for our cell culture area, and here in the purification area, look at all the requirements and try to combine them in the most efficient manufacturing way possible. Again, this is done manually. They have a lot of calculations that they do. There's line loss factors that need to be included with the buffer preps, and it all needs to be tracked and allocated appropriately. And because they're using Excel, what ends up happening occasionally is that they would get system crashes, and any work that they had done to schedule an efficient buffer prep operation would get lost, and they would have to go back and rebuild again. Very labor intensive for the schedulers, very frustrating, and very risky for operations too, because if they miss one of these critical aliquots in one of their prep strategies, then they could potentially delay operations, or even worst case, cause a drug substance batch to get put to drain. So that's really the challenge that we had to consider when we looked at scheduling tools. We need to find a scheduling application that would help us with the scheduling of the buffer and media prep areas. And some of our constraints that we have is that we have our buffer preps are very lengthy. They take about 4 hours to do a buffer prep with very lengthy changeovers. So our CIP between our clean in place would take about 3.5 hours. So they need to be as efficient as possible. There's a lot of changes in the schedules that would cause the schedulers to have to go back and rebuild the buffer prep schedule. Several non-routine requests would come in each week where they would have to, schedulers would need to find places on the schedule to fit in these buffer preps to support these non-routine requests. And there's limited capacity in the area as well. And these buffer preps are supporting the entire facility, which is could have any number of permutations of products running across the facility at any time. So with those challenging considerations, just to put all that into some sort of context, our ERP system, in 2015, I pulled these numbers while we were completely on Excel, and we processed a total of about 5,700 total process orders in our ERP system. Of those 5,700 orders, almost 5,000 of them were just for media and buffer prep process orders. Those 5,000 orders yielded about, say, 10,500 total aliquots, totaling about 4 million liters of media and buffer solutions that needed to be scheduled manually in the way I just told you about, all using Excel by 3 schedulers in our plant. So we use multiple Excel spreadsheets to manage this, and these 3 schedulers would do this just by sheer brute force. Huge risk to our operations if one of those buffer preps were misscheduled, and very labor intensive for them to do. So we knew we needed to kind of address this risk and make life easier for our schedulers. So we started to prepare for our project and take a look at systems that would help us to address these challenges. And as we did that, we formulated an integrated team consisting of the production business systems group, manufacturing schedulers. We needed the people who had the expertise in the scheduling and in the plant. IT was there to kind of help us guide us along with how to prepare for this electronic system. Manufacturing was involved, and also finance was involved as well. So we had this integrated project team with all of the areas of knowledge to help us take a look at the business process, prepare for the project, and select a vendor. And we took a phased approach. So we spent a lot of time preparing for this project and doing the front-end work that was needed in order for us to be successful. First thing we needed to do was understand where exactly finite scheduling sat in our business process, our end-to-end business process. There were there's a lot of confusion up front where people who wanted to look at a finite scheduling application wanted to look at something that would help with debottlenecking and help with the capacity evaluation and planning, where when I show you the business process, really what we wanted to do was replace those Excel spreadsheets for scheduling with something that would do that job correctly. So there was really needed to get ourselves grounded to really understand what those requirements of that system would be, and to understand where that was in the business process and And as we did that, we really could understand exactly what system would do that very well. So we started to look at, as we started to look at vendors, we had them develop a proof of concept with our own process data to help us really make sure that we're selecting the right application. We did a GMP evaluation on the system and determined that this would not be a GXP system, and that this is really for business efficiency, so that would sort of help us with our project scope and know that we wouldn't need to validate it since it was a non-GMP system. Once we presented our business case and did all our upfront work, we presented that to the project and portfolio management team, and it was approved, and we were able to go ahead and purchase our software. So our goal was to implement a standalone system. So phase one would be a standalone system of finite scheduling. Our modelers and our schedulers would be fully trained at the end of our project. Our baseline plant would be modeled. We would have a way to publish schedules. We would look at our requirements for ERP interfaces, and then we would cut over and go live. In future phases would be to do an interface with SAP. We would implement, since we're a multi-product facility and we are now a launch center of excellence, we have multiple tech transfers happening at the site. So we would put in our tech transfer products as well, and we've done that already to this date. And we already have a interface between ERP and the application. Some future work that will happen would be an interface between our CMMS system to help us be able to schedule our work orders and our PMs on equipment, and to do some enhanced reporting for other functional areas. So just to talk about some of the front-end work we did in order to be successful, we really needed to define the user requirements, improve our business processes that we had, and really understand in the industry what other companies do and did well, and what systems were out there. So I could talk about all of these for a very long time, but I really just want to highlight two of the key success factors that we had for our project. And these are the two items that I highlighted with the gold stars. So the two gold star items really were to understand the business flow, the business process flow with a flow diagram, and to create these process templates. So these are system agnostic process templates that capture all of our manufacturing data that we want to show on the schedule. These were really the two key items that we did in the front end that helped us with our project. And to understand our business process, the way we designed it was vertically in this business process flow diagram. I have this vertically divided by the functional area, kind of in these swim lanes. So each color-coded area is a different functional group, from global supply chain planning to master production scheduling, facilities, engineering, validation, the manufacturing schedulers, which was the yellow swim lane in the center, our materials management group, and manufacturing operations, and then our QA area. So those are all of the functional areas that we were looking at in this end-to-end business process. And horizontally, the way this business process flow diagram was organized was by the system that was used that each functional area did the work in. So the top two are both with ERP, so we have a planning application and a ERP inventory management system. All of the green sections in the middle on the left side, those are all different Excel spreadsheets that people would use to do their work. Three of those were for the manufacturing schedulers. There's the CMMS system, non-routine work, and then work execution. So in order for us to keep grounded and know where we were implementing our application, it was really that spot in the middle that's white in that production and plant scheduling section. That's where the Excel spreadsheets were for the daily schedule and our buffer and media prep schedule. So in order for us to kind of know where we were operating, that was where it was, and it was important to have this to communicate to other people, this is what we were going to implement for scheduling. The other key success factor was to develop these process templates. And like I said, these are system-agnostic Excel tables that captures the master data that would be used to configure the application. And what we're showing is the routings of the activities we want to show that are scheduled, equipment that's used, the duration of the activities, and all of the buffer and media aliquots that are used to support these activities as well. These were a great way for us to organize a lot of that kind of tribal knowledge and personal knowledge that the schedulers and manufacturing had and put it in a sort of a standard format. And anytime, and we still maintain these, so anytime we make a change to master data in the application, we go back and we update the process template. So we have a way to understand what we've used to configure our processes and our models in our application. The other thing that these process templates were good for was for our vendor selection process. When we started talking to vendors, we would have them come to the site and we would see their standard vendor demo that they would give. And if we thought that this is a vendor that we wanted to pursue and thought that maybe this would fit our requirements, we would give them an example, we would give them a process template to take with them, and they would configure, do a second follow-up demo with our own process, using this process template as the master data to configure that. We treated each of our vendors the same way by giving them this information, and they took about a week and a half to configure their application, and they came back and gave us that follow-up demo, and it was also very key in helping us decide on the correct vendor to use. So that was a big deal, was to have these process templates in place. And to develop these, we developed them for our existing manufacturing process as part of this project. So we used any process maps that we had available. There was a lot of, people had personal knowledge of processes that we used to build these and refine them. Any bills of materials from ERP, any templates that schedulers might have had available, engineering documents to help build the factory data for equipment minimum and maximum sizes, buffers that were needed, and any batch records that we could use, we would build these process templates with. For future processes, we would be using any tech transfer information. And so any documentation coming out of a tech transfer, like a process description or new equipment list, we use that to build the process templates. And so with all that in mind, the goals of the project was to implement the best solution that was out there that would really take that buffer challenging and automate that, buffer prep challenge that we had, and automate that in the best way possible, and replace those Excel tables to minimize the amount of work that the schedulers take to do the scheduling, and also minimize the risk involved with manual scheduling. We wanted this done automatically, and also help to improve the organization of our master data for scheduling. If we were able to accomplish these goals, we would realize a reduction in labor that it takes to build a schedule, minimizing risk and human errors, and really help formalize how we handled our data, and also help cross-plant harmonization from our Lexington site to our Cambridge site. And with all that, Megan Rabideau is going to talk to you about how we were able to execute the project and how we manage our data and load that into the system.
Thank you, John. Now, project execution begins with the project team. Our project team included our front-end team, which consisted of production and business systems, our schedulers, and IT. And we also added the vendors project team, namely the principal consultant and the project manager. The majority of the work was done by the principal consultant, who provided training and experience in the biotech industry to our team. Once we had our team together, we approached project kickoff. The purpose of the kickoff meeting was to understand people's roles and the scope of the project, and as well as define timelines, deliverables, and to communicate the plan. This is an overview of our project execution. We had a one-year timeline, which was possible mainly because of the strength of our preparatory work was already done in the front-end study stage. You can see here that the most significant amount of time was spent on the proof of concept models. For our proof of concept development, we picked a representative process for both upstream and downstream manufacturing. At this point, we also focused on developing the procedure for that buffer prep optimization component. An important factor was deciding how to manage our data as well as load our scheduling models into our software tool. We decided to maintain those process templates which we had created in the front-end stage as the master data source, the source of all of our input into the scheduling software. We would then translate those process templates into a software-specific load file so that we could consistently and accurately configure our scheduling models in the software tool. This is an example of that purification process now in the new scheduling tool. The steps for creating the purification process begin with creating the initiating activity, the first step in the purification process on the first day of the run. From there, it builds out the subsequent activities from configured data. Of course, that purification process also has buffers associated with it. In the tool, aliquots were configured as inflow to the purification activities. So in terms of buffer optimization, this is where the scheduling tool really became extremely helpful. It combines multiple aliquots, all those different aliquots for the one purification process or multiple processes, into larger prep volumes. And its optimization capabilities allowed us to automatically consider CIP skid usage, changeover times, vessel capacity, and availability. We decided that we would have two reports in order to publish the schedule. First, we have a Gantt chart view for production activities, as well as a detailed agenda for buffer prep activities, which have a lot more information associated with them. Both of these reports are available on an internal SharePoint site for anyone to view from their computer or even their phone. Now, the user acceptance test stage. We had this testing done by our actual end users, which are the plan schedulers, who, as you remember, were on our project team. The key factor here was in getting timely feedback from the schedulers in order to document issues, and we made sure that we closed all issues before moving on to go live. Our go-live process really consisted of communicating to manufacturing that the schedule was going to change and making sure that they were prepared. We took a couple of approaches for this, but the most important thing is that we began this process at the end of the proof of concept stage, as soon as we had something to show. Now, there were many lessons learned in this project, but some of the most critical ones were getting end-user feedback, including manufacturing, that the prep work we had done with those process templates, with the business process, that was really critical in getting up and running. And it was extremely helpful to have that team of modelers, schedulers, and IT in separate roles for which that they are subject matter experts. So everyone had their own role in the team. It was also great that we had the schedulers, plant schedulers, directly involved in our project. Now, as we were going through our project execution, we did face some risks. 2 of our 3 original schedulers left mid-project and were replaced. However, we were lucky that these new schedulers had manufacturing insight and that documentation of process data, translating that personal knowledge into this process templates, allowed the project to continue and to succeed. In summary, it was the right decision. Since go live, we've seen an improvement in the operability, flexibility, scalability needed at this time of growth in our facility. Additionally, the efficiency of the data management and loading process has enabled us with agility to support incoming tech transfers and potential expansions without the help of the vendors. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. I'd now like to pass it back to Sri.
Thank you very much. So at this point, I would like to begin the question and answer session. So the first question we have is, when you were doing the vendor evaluation and selection, what would you say were the most important deciding factors?
That's a very good question. When we did our vendor selection process, the project team, and this was the planning team there, we developed a kind of a scorecard of different, probably about 27 different criteria that we were going to score the vendors on. And they were all weighted very differently. And some of them, just the categories of these criteria were the overall, high-level application performance, the kind of look and feel of the application, how, the usability of it, interfaces. We scored them on how well their system would interface with other systems. One of the categories that was actually weighted very highly was the vendor strength, the vendor strength of the vendor itself, because as part of the kind of second demo that I was talking about in the presentation section, when they would show our process and their application, we weren't just scoring them on how well the application could schedule our process. We were also scoring the vendor on how well they understood our data, the type of questions they would ask when they were building the demo, and when they were modeling the demo, how much experience they had in the biotech industry. We didn't want a vendor coming from the oil refinery industry and trying to understand our process. We wanted somebody that would be able to give us very good suggestions on how to improve our scheduling process, and also who knew very well how to use the application. So I think for us, one of the most critical was obviously the scheduling tool had to be able to schedule our process, but we really wanted to have a very good partnership with our vendor as well, and have them provide a very good, be very good consultants to us as we went through our project.
Great, thank you very much. Just as a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions for our presenters today, then please send them through to us via the questions tab at the bottom of your screen, and we'll ask them to the presenters. So our next question, in your estimate, how much of the project implementation was done by manufacturing or scheduling operations, and how much by IT?
That's also a very good question. But our project team was a cross-functional team. We had IT involved, we had the schedulers were involved, we had our production and business systems group was involved, and manufacturing was also involved as well to a certain degree. The important thing about having a cross-functional team like that was that each functional area would bring their own expertise to the project. So IT would be responsible for delivering the system infrastructure, managing the licenses, making sure the application would work on the end user's computers. The manufacturing schedulers would bring their expertise of scheduling and the manufacturing process, and the production and business systems group would be there to sort of provide the glue and to be the modelers of the application once the vendor went away and to manage the master data. So it really was up to IT to manage the back end of the application, and production and business systems in partnership with the manufacturing schedulers to configure the front end. Because this type of system is so much process data that needs to be loaded into it. We wouldn't really expect our IT group to have the details of a manufacturing operation with this type of project.
Great. Our next question, what were the key success factors in the project?
I think with this type of project, as we said in the presentation, the front-end study and really knowing what it is we were getting into and what it is that we were planning on doing. We had a very good plan. We had a lot of background on the project. These were all key success factors on the project, but also we had the executive support as well. This is the Excel scheduling was something that everybody knew had to go away at some point, and there was a desire for the scheduling to be done on a more robust platform. We had the executive support and the backing of everybody in order to enable this to get done. So between the front end work and that executive support, that's really what made this project so successful.
Great. Our next question. Are you planning to include personnel resources to your models in the future? And can you do that with this particular software?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
Are you planning to include personnel resources to your models in the future? Can you do that with this particular software?
Our software does enable that. We can add labor to the models. We decided at Go Live not to do that because we wanted to kind of take our existing scheduling practices, improve them a little bit, and not go into too great of a change for the organization. This is something that we would have to look at in the future if it's needed by management to be able to do that. And we would do that by taking the same kind of steps that we did when we did the initial configuration. We would do a bit of a front-end study to understand what that would look like and how it would be used by the business and how it would get used by the application.
Great. The next question, now that the system is implemented, how long does it take to create a schedule?
It takes minutes, I would say. So as long as the schedulers have the start dates from ERP, they can create the schedules a couple of different ways. They can manually create batches by using the start dates and start in the initiating activity, or with our ERP interface, what they can do is get an export of a process order report from ERP, and the scheduling application can actually read that report and automatically create the batches on the planning board. That can do that for one batch, or that can do that for 20 months worth of batches. Whatever it is in the report, it can create that many batches. And then once the initiating activity is on the schedule, it takes less than a minute for the schedulers to be able to create the subsequent activities, all of the different routings.
Thanks. So next question, since your company business is in biotechnology, do you have to validate the system? And is it considered GMP? How did you approach the compliance aspects of the project?
We did a GXP evaluation for our procedures. So we have standard procedures to evaluate any application that we're implementing at the site. And for our procedures, we have a questionnaire that we filled out to determine whether or not this would be a GXP system. And in partnership with quality and our validation and our IT group, it was determined that this is not a GMP system, which means that operators will still need to follow their procedures on the floor. So if there's for example, a buffer tank that needs to be cleaned prior to use, and it doesn't say it on the schedule, but according to the equipment logs that this has expired the clean hold time, they still need to follow their GMP procedures on the floor in order to do a pre-use CIP. This is a business efficiency application that improves the scheduling and planning of activities for the manufacturing floor.
Thank you very much. So that seems like all the questions that we have today. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our presenters, Dr. Gloria Gadea-Lopez, John Maguire, and Megan Rabideau, for sharing their knowledge with us. Audiences can view this webinar on demand by visiting biopharma-asia.com/webinars. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.